Television. I'm Simiat Abaru, and of course I'm standing in for Tunde Shudeke on the program. On Democratic Parts today, we'll be looking at a very critical conversation when you check the lips of every Nigerian today. And of course, in the course of the week, starting from Tuesday, you will discover that the issue of refinery is what we've been talking about. And it is why we brought this conversation here today to discuss and of course have meaningful engagement with our guests, such that we would be able to have a direction when it comes to the refineries working in Nigeria. Today we'll be looking at revitalizing the Port Harcourt refinery, and definitely have two guests with me to discuss this issue. In the studio, I have a public affairs analyst, Mr. Bayo Olabode. Thank you so much for being our guest on the program today.
Thank you, Samiat, for having me.
And of course, via Zoom, we would also be engaging one of our public affairs analysts, and definitely in the course of the presentation, you would get to meet him, and of course, we'll discuss this issue. Revitalizing the Port Harcourt refinery. This is a very long time coming. There have been different, staggered, pronouncement when it comes to the workings of this particular refinery. They've been shifting the dates, and you've been hearing all kinds of rumor. When are they going to actually commence operation? And of course, when the announcement came on Tuesday, Nigeria was still like, it's not going to be true. It's more or less going to be what they've been saying before now. So let's get your first reaction when you got the news that that refinery is actually working at 70% capacity.
Thank you, Samiat. I actually received the news also with mixed feelings, because the goalpost has been shifted time and again, and so we met it with some degree of skepticism. But thank God we are finally here, and we hope that the overall objective will be to drive down the cost of fuel and then the availability of the product across the length and breadth of Nigeria. And of course, the downside of it is the employment opportunity to grant to Nigerians, particularly in the Port Harcourt sub-region when it begins to commence full operation. But I must add this to it, that at 70% capacity operation, there's still a long way to go. At least there's still some way to go, because if you look at the cost of money that went into the turnaround maintenance, into the building of the refinery itself, it's a humongous amount of money, and I think Nigerians deserve to get value for it. Well, starting at 70% capacity, I think we should move up very, very quickly, at least to get optimum profit from that operation.
A part of what the Nigerian people are expecting, especially because when the NLC started negotiations with the federal government, it's more like we want our own refineries to actually work. And that, of course, would reduce the cost of fuel at this time. Nigerians can't actually wait to get the price come down at a very reduced rate. So looking at the rates they're selling at Dangote refineries and what when we have the Port Harcourt coming on board, are you optimistic that very, very soon, we would have something reasonable to talk about when it comes to reduction of the cost of fuel?
First of all, I have skepticism about this, and I will be unapologetic about it, because if you look at the scenario with Dangote refinery, you discover that NNPC was more or less like the midwife between Dangote and other independent marketers. They had to dance to their tune. And knowing this at the back of our mind, that NNPC itself had a backlog of about close to $6 billion that they've not been able to account for how it came about and how they are going to offset it. Of course, this will be passed down to the Nigerian public, whether we like it or not. There's no free lunch anywhere. So I think my take on this is, maybe when that indebtedness is offset, then we can begin to think of price of fuel coming down. But I, as a person, I don't see any magic that will be done with those numbers, except first of all, they take care of that. They have a clean slate, then that they can begin to talk of price of fuel coming down.
The policy aspect of it, that's the economic and policy implications. You have the NNPCL now with the PIA. A lot of people are saying that this is actually not going to be business as usual. You have an NPC Limited projecting 23.7 trillion naira in remittances from refinery operations by 2025. And of course, how one would ask, how realistic is this projection, especially because we know them to be not frequent when it comes to the issues of remittances, and of course you just get to hear all sorts of issues coming from that end. At the end of the day, it's not translating to the real change that Nigerians are expecting, and the real money or funds needed they needed to get from an NPC.
Yeah, Simiat, if you remember, I think it was last week that we had this discussion on this same panel, on this same studio, and I was talking about the fact that government everywhere around the world is a bad businessman. And I premised my, my take on NNPC in particular. If you look at the amount of money that has gone in and what we have to show for it, no business person would have that kind of operation going. No business person will have that kind of operation going. And there have been no accountability. There has been nobody who has been brought to book, and nobody has been fired that I know of, at least en masse. So if we have this same government having its hands in this kind of enterprise, we are not going to have different results. I would receive it with a pinch of salt, because you wouldn't have, it won't be run like a private sector is run. Look at Dangote Refinery, for crying out loud. There is what you do in government circles that you get a pat on the back or a slap on the wrist, but in private sector you go home straight. That's even if if you've caused them some damage, you bear the brunt of it. But government doesn't work like that. And so when it comes to those numbers that are being turned out, I think we'll just keep our fingers crossed and wait to see how it happens.
All right, I told you earlier that we would be having another guest via Zoom, and of course he is joining us already. His name is Bayomi. Mr. Bayomi Babalola is a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for being a part of Democratic Pass this afternoon. Can you hear us, Mr. Babalola?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you for joining. When you check the release by the presidential spokesperson, you have him commending President Muhammadu Buhari for initiating the comprehensive rehabilitation of all the refineries. And of course, you also have him say that, make commendations saying gratitude to African Export-Import Bank for its confidence in financing the critical project. Nigerians are always assuming that most of this, money is being spent to revitalize the refineries are largely the funds by the public. That's the public funds. I don't know what your reaction was when you got the news that this project was actually, co-sponsored or what's it called? Funded by this particular bank, the African Export-Import Bank.
Once again, can you hear me?
We can barely hear you, sir.
I can.
Okay, you can go ahead with your contribution.
Can I go ahead?
Mr. Babalola, you can go ahead if you can hear us.
I can hear you. Now, was mentioned that
the audio is not too. We can barely hear your contribution, Mr. Babalola. Maybe you should change your location. Okay, you can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
You can hear me now.
You can go ahead. Let's get to hear you. Maybe it will be better this time around.
Now, I was thinking, when I saw the other guest in the studio, I was thinking maybe it's another essay that resides in the Niger Delta area because of his attire. I love his scarf, I must say. I love that attire. And he should be able to tell us what's going on in Port Harcourt. Now, having said that, when I first heard the news, let me be sincere with you, I was very happy. Very, very happy because so many people see me as somebody that has been defending this government in many cases. And I have looked forward to when any of these refineries will be resuscitated and it will start working. So when the news came up on Tuesday that it has started working, I was happy. I had this impetus to even start sharing the news. But I had this thing that held me back, that this is Nigeria. That if you hear any news, wait hours or thereabout and say you are ecstatic about it. And I must tell you that what I've heard, what I've read, what I've seen in the last 48 hours concerning this Port Harcourt refinery has put some doubts in me. I've seen a video today where somebody that resides in the host community was telling us that a lot of these things being shown were doctored. But the expectations of Nigerians still remains that we want these facilities to work. People want these refineries to work. And you will see from the reactions of Nigerians in the last 48 hours, you will see that people were really expecting this to work. Immediately they said it has started working, people were now asking, when are we going to have the fuel price coming down? Because people were waiting for it. People knew that once we have the refineries working, there is every possibility that the competition that will come up will most likely bring down the price of the pump price of fuel. But then let NNPC prove to us that this is not another scam, that this is real. Let's see what the production will be in another 1 week, in another 2 weeks. Because if they are telling us that they are operating, the Port Harcourt refinery is operating at 70% at the moment. 70% of 60,000 barrels per day. That's over 400,000 liters. So where 400,000 liters go in Nigeria today, I will not see it. So for me, I want to be happy. I want to be ecstatic about the news. But then I have this constraint that let me wait and see if this thing will be proved right or otherwise. So that is where I stand for now.
Okay, Mr. Babalola, when the news broke out, you recall that last week we have a report that Dangote refinery is complaining of not having enough crude to power their own, to produce, the expected capacity. So now you have the Port Harcourt refineries. Are you optimistic that crude won't be a challenge if we have them running at 70% capacity, and of course the particular one, the one of 60,000 barrels per day capacity? Are you optimistic that that is really going to not have the challenge that Dangote refinery is having, because it is NNPCL that is managing it? Mr. Babalola, are you with us? Okay, maybe I should take the question to to you, Mr. Olabode. You heard last week Dangote was complaining about the fact that they need to get crude from outside the country, and of course this is our own refineries, and of course the expectation is that crude shouldn't be a problem or a challenge, if it could be for the private sector that are investing in this part of the sector. So how optimistic are you that that won't be a challenge moving forward?
Semiat, my position has always been the operation and involvement of government in spheres like this that are business inclined. And it's born out of the fact that we've seen time and time again promises made and promises not fulfilled. And we've seen agencies of government that have shown us that government itself doesn't have the capacity, at least in this part of the world, to walk the talk and at the same time talk the talk. Now, I don't see any reason. It's not rocket science why Nigeria is an oil-producing country, and a major one at that, with abundance of crude, one of the best also in the world today. And we are not able to supply both Dangote refinery, the Port Harcourt, both old and new refinery. Don't forget, we also have the one at Warri and also the one at Edo, not to talk of Kaduna and the other ones that are coming up. Now, these are indices that begins to make us receive the news with cautious optimism. Now, we haven't gone anywhere yet. Now, the objective is to have Kaduna working, to have Edo working, to have Warri working, and then, of course, the Port Harcourt one, old and new, working, and also service Dangote refinery. I believe that these issues did not creep up on us suddenly. These are issues that we already knew that these refineries were there, and then we factored in the fact that Dangote would need so much, 650,000 barrels per day of crude. That is their own capacity for production. So it didn't creep up on us suddenly. We should have factored it out. How does crude get to this point? How does crude get to this point? It's not rocket science. But just like I keep saying, the government doesn't do very good business. And it's because there are no people held to account. I would have expected that the regulatory bodies for NNPC would be given specific clear-cut mandates and targets. You don't meet it, you are going. And I don't think we are in short supply of human resources and capacity.
Transparency and accountability has been the major challenge in this sector. How do you think the government should ensure this is one area moving forward that we don't have that challenge any longer?
Well, if we begin with how the private sector conducts its business, it is based on contract. We are hiring you for so and so XYZ reasons, and these are our expectations. This is your take home. Do you agree to it? And these are the times in which we begin to make assessments. So if you don't pass the first and second quarter test, then there's no point in us proceeding any further with it.
So, Mr. Babalola, are you there now? Are you back? Can you hear us, please? Okay, I guess Mr. Babalola would have to join us in the discussion as...
I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me now. Thank you so much. This critical sector is one area that most Nigerians are expecting magic to happen. I don't know if it is magic that would happen or that critical structure needs to be put in place to manage that sector based on what Mr. Olabode said with respect to the transparency level and accountability rate of managing the funds and, of course, the crude, to distribute to the different investors in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. The refineries majorly now. So how do you think this can be done?
Well, first, let me quickly say this on the issue of crude, availability of crude that Dangote complained about some weeks back. And now we have Port Harcourt refinery coming up. It means that the two facilities will have to supply crude. If what they told was that already at this time, we are looking at 1.8 million barrels per day crude oil production, I think supplying Dangote and Port Harcourt shouldn't be a problem if truly we are looking on 1.8 million barrels of crude per day. But like I said earlier, you take many of this information with a pinch of salt. So if they are ready to supply, and another thing is this, which of the two will you give priority? Is it Dangote or our own refinery? Which of the two will you give priority? So if Dangote is asking for 650,000 barrels, 650,000 liters worth of crude oil, compared to Port Harcourt that needs just 60,000. Will you give Port Harcourt the whole 60,000 and then collect that of Dangote, or you collect for the two of them? It depends on the priority we have set for ourselves. But I think they should know how to maneuver between the two facilities and supply them crude. Now, the issue of trust the issue of accountability. See, it's not peculiar to NNPC. It's not peculiar to our oil industry. It's all sectors. Some days back or thereabouts, you heard a sitting governor showing us in a video where some civil servants were selling items meant for the hospitals. So the issue cuts across all these sectors, and these things are not perpetrated by spirits. They are being done by Nigerians to Nigerians for Nigeria. So it now depends on Mr. President as the Minister of Petroleum to now say that the sector, the ministry that I am overseeing, I want some sanity in that ministry. See, if you ask an average Nigerian on the street that knows what is happening with NNPC, they'll tell you that NNPC is a cesspool of corruption. People don't trust that sector. People don't trust people there. But how are we going to stop it? We need that one man, that leader, either the minister or the PS, if he has the guts to do it, to say no, this is what has to be done. But if the minister
Mr. Babalola, for clear-cut accountability and transparency, some have advocated the need for the president to actually appoint a minister, not state now, for petroleum, and leave the work to that particular individual, so that at least they will say the president is not the president and also the minister of petroleum resources in Nigeria. Are you also joining those calling for that to happen?
Don't know why subsequent presidents are so much interested in being the minister of petroleum. Probably because of the reports we heard when Desiani Anisi was holding forth. You notice that subsequently, presidents have been pronouncing themselves as minister, either as the senior minister, and they will appoint another person as minister of state. So you never can tell. Nigerians are complaining about power, for goodness sake. Why hasn't any of our presidents said, I am the minister for power? Nigerians have been complaining about education. Why any of them has not pronounced themselves as minister of education? Why any of them has not pronounced themselves as minister of health? There's something that makes that sector so peculiar to them that all of them are so much interested in it. So even if you are calling Mr. President to hands off today, if he decides to put somebody that will listen to him and do everything, it doesn't make any difference to Nigerians. What matters to us? See, Nigerians don't say, Mr. President, what can you eat? Come and tell us how you spend at home. Come and tell us how much you give your wife or how much you give your children. Give us enabling environment.
All right, I'll be back. I would Mr. Babalola.
Once we have that, we move on.
Okay, let me engage Mr. Olabode in the studio once more before I go back to Mr. Babalola. There are calls that the president should actually do something different this time around, and which is that they should privatize most of the refineries we have so that it would start working and of course compete favorably with other refineries that will be coming on board. The former president the former vice president and of course the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, also joined those saying that that is the way forward. You have also been saying that government do not have business in business. I don't know if that is what you would also be advocating for, so that we can have sanity in that sector.
Yes, 100%, Semiat. I'll go with what Atiku Abubakar said. And based on these following reasons. Now, I think there are close to about 10 refineries. The ones owned by government are, how many now? I can't do the maths, but I know Port Harcourt 1 and 2, Warri, then there's Edo, then there's Kaduna. Now, if these ones get into private hands, there will be no monopoly Because what we have now is a sort of monopoly by the government. Government gets to decide what prices they wanted to sell to the independent marketers as they took from took from Dangote, and today also it's whatever it is that they decide that that goes. But by the time you have market forces allowing the prices to play out for themselves without any involvement of government, without any monopoly in it, then the market forces will determine the prices. You find out that without anybody telling us, the prices will definitely come down because everybody will be in a healthy competition for service, for quality delivery, and for pricing. So I think he got that right. I may not agree with Atiku on every other thing, but I think on this one, government will also free some funds for some other things because a lot has been tied down in NNPC.
We've heard different experts also talk about this particular issue. Some have said that these refineries would stop, or probably if the government refineries start to work properly, like we have the HARCOURT refinery, coming on board, you would hardly see private investors come and do business because of the kind of ways that they would, not just like you just explained, that privatizing it would not give it a sort of monopoly. So are you optimistic that if our refineries, as we've been clamoring for, if they start working, they would not stop, or they would not discourage investors to come and invest like Dangote has done?
Well, if the enable environment is created for investors to come in, and then there are no restrictions, there are no arm twistings and under table deals, then government will find out that it has to sit up, or it will just have to ship out, or it will even outrightly close shop. Because if you look at what the private sector is bringing to the table, the excellence that they are bringing to the table, the service delivery that they are bringing to the table, government will not be able to match it. Let's not deceive ourselves. Government will not be able to match it going forward with how they have conducted the business so far.
All right, Mr. Babalola, let's talk about the regional dimension to this. Some call it balancing. And of course, you have the MURIC calling for reactivation of the Kaduna refinery for geopolitical balancing. There's nothing we talk about that they don't talk about representation. They don't talk about, let's every part of the country, be involved in this particular progress. So this call, as he has rightly put it, that's the MURIC now saying that let's do something about the Kaduna refinery as well. Is that also what you think we should do because of the balancing status?
This idea of we want to balance everything in the country has not really given us something beautiful in this country. For goodness sake, why is MURIC not telling Dangote to come and replicate the Dangote refinery in Kano? See, like I said, we have to prioritize some things. For now, let us start that worry of a thing. And ideally, the next one you should be talking about will be after Port Harcourt. The next one we should be talking about should be the Warri refinery. Before we talk about Kaduna refinery, except in, like Mr. Odabode said, that we should allow private hands to come and handle it. Will private investors see Port Harcourt or Warri refinery as being more viable? And they will say because of national interest, because we want to satisfy all regional areas, let us go and open a refinery in a desert in Yobe State. It doesn't work that way, and that is one of the reasons why some people are saying the government should continue to run the petroleum sector, that they should not hand it over to the private sectors. Because private, and if they see an area where they are not going to make profits, they will tell you they are not going there. So let us prioritize what we want. The country needs money. This is the major source of our income, at least for now. Let's put in our resources, the little resources we want to invest in this sector. let us invest it in an area where we know is viable. Oguta said, as it is now, okay, Lagos State or Oyo State should be saying that the federal government should come and open a refinery in Ibadan or Ishaki because we want to balance everything.
All right, so Mr. Babalola,
let's leave it as it is.
Okay, thank you so much for your thought on that particular question. In case you're just joining us, this is Democratic Path on Ogun State Television. We're looking at revitalizing the Port Harcourt refinery, and I have two guests discussing these issues with. We have Mr. Bayo Olabode, a public affairs analyst here in the studio, and of course, Mr. Bayomi Babalola, also a public affairs analyst, joining us virtually. You want to also be part of the discussion? The studio line is on the screen. You can call us and share your thoughts on the program. And definitely let's talk more about the broader energy strategy. Some said Nigeria should prioritize refining capacity over oil exploration in the north. And of course, or is also a dual approach necessary to address energy security and regional equity. That issue of equity balance is always at the forefront of the discussions when it comes to critical assets of the nation. And you have an example of why Dangote Northerner is coming to Lagos to come and build these refineries. And you have that answer largely in the last protest of August 1. Where you have, critical national assets being destroyed in some parts of the northern states. So where do you stand with the issue of balancing and equity discussion around the table?
Well, I will take this approach. While we must prioritize the business and the options that give us profit and that best serves our nation and our pockets, we must also not forget that this is the Federal Republic of Nigeria with about 6 geopolitical zones. Anything that will be done that will make us forget that will not bode very, very well. Let's not forget that. But having said that, let's know that we find ourselves in a very, very precarious condition today where the economy is in dire need of funds and revitalization. So whatever needs to be done to bring in the needed cash, to bring in the needed resources.
Sir, we have Kita calling from Lagos. Kita, thank you for joining Democratic Path on Ogun State Television. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear. Can I talk?
Kita, are you there?
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you can make your contributions. We can hear you.
If you listen to what Luke is talking about, vitalization of the...
We can barely hear you. Peter.
I mean, they are just underrating the importance of this economic activity. How come they are very religious?
We apologize. We can barely hear your contribution, Kita. Maybe you try again so that we can hear and, of course, enjoy your contribution on the program. Mr. Labode, you're trying to stress the need for equity.
Yes. So I was saying that while we prioritize the business dimension to it, what brings the most profit and advantage to us as a nation, let's also not forget it is the Federal Republic of Nigeria that has 6 geopolitical zones. And so we must factor that in directly or indirectly, because any other thing that will be done to ignore this will not bode very, very well for the nation. But we have an economy and a situation that is more or less comatose today. So are we going to choose the balance, or are we going to choose what it is that serves the majority of the people well? So it's a case of priority. And I think this can be done in such a way that no part feels shortchanged. But it's a very, very fine line that the government will need to tread. And I think a lot of diplomacy also will be required for this.
And people would ask, we have not been having our refineries working for quite some while, for some time now. And now that we're trying to revitalize these refineries, what policy reforms do you think we need to to make right now to ensure that we don't go back to the days where they no longer work?
Well, thank you. I think when we look at this, one of the things that we have done very, very poorly is in management. Now, the first refinery was sometime in 63, 65. I stand to be corrected. And then we opened our eyes and watched these things run down without a policy in place for maintenance and for upgrade. Now, if you find that when those things will be sold now, they'll be sold for next to nothing or at scrap. And this is because we don't have a maintenance culture in place and policies that allows for upgrade, that allows for periodic check and maintenances. You begin to wonder why we wait until this...
but we get to see different budgets go into turnaround maintenance every now and then.
And huge one at that, and then you can, when you look at it, it doesn't actually add up. It doesn't actually add up. But the point I was actually making is that we must have a system in place where we don't wait until it is flat on its back before we begin to apply first aid. We must keep it running, have constant checks, have constant reviews and approaches to how it can be better done, how it can effectively serve the community.
No, looking at what I said just now, with the issue of budgeting to do turnaround maintenance at every budget circle, you get to hear that come into the budget, trying to rehabilitate the different refineries, and of course you're not getting result. Instead, they're spending more to maintain without any production as such. So how can we address that challenge? Because now if we talk about trying to budget or trying to ensure that there is maintenance, they are budgeting to maintain, just that it's not to the capacity needed, to the functionality needed. Okay, let's take this call, and of course we'll get back to your answer. Abeokuta is calling from Abeokuta. Thank you so much for joining Democratic Path today. Abeokuta, are you with us? Okay, I guess the network is not being friendly with us.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear us now?
I want to... Yes, I'm hearing you, and I'm...
Okay, we can hear you now. Please make your contribution.
I'm hearing you.
Go ahead with your contribution. We can hear you too.
Okay. I want to congratulate the federal government for... I want to congratulate the federal government for making this feat possible. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you. Please, you can make your contribution. We can hear you because of our time.
Okay, I want to congratulate the federal government for making the refinery workable again. Yes, it's the smallest one, but it is something.
Okay. Oh, the network,
but
I guess.
By His grace, like the president has promised, let us hope the others will work. I plead with our people to please give this government a chance. Yes, it's just like the pains of a childbirth. By the end of it, all of us will smile. That's just what I want to contribute, my sister. God bless you.
Amen. God bless you too. Thank you for your contribution. Abeokuta calling from Abeokuta. He's so optimistic about this development, and he is imploring the federal government to ensure other refineries actually work.
Yeah, his optimism is actually very contagious. I'm also very optimistic now.
All right. So you were trying to respond to the earlier questions we were talking about, the discussion around the reforms that is needed. You keep hearing maintenance, turnaround maintenance, and of course they are not producing anything, and of course you keep hearing that. Looking at that reality, and the reality you talked about, that there is the need for them to continue to do, to maintain the equipment and of course the overall facilities. So how do what kind of reform would be suitable for that?
Semiat, we'll go back to what I've been saying earlier, and maybe I'm sounding like a broken record. This is how much we are willing to put into this venture called NMPC. And this is the estimated profit that we are expecting. Now, the reason why we have endless cash going into NNPC without commensurate results is because the purse of the federal government is still like an ATM card that doesn't just run dry. But you see, the private individual would never do that. And that is why I believe that government just doesn't have any business with business. Because it wouldn't, you hear the amount that goes into turnaround maintenance, and you remember today the world has become a global village. You look at what is spent on similar refineries, similar projects around the world, and it doesn't add up. It becomes very, very disturbing. And this is because it is done in the ambit of governance, and so it's more or less like anything goes. But once you have a private approach put to it, there's a budget that XYZ company is coming up with. It wouldn't allow certain practices to go in. This is how much we are putting into turnaround maintenance, and then somebody who is doing it for us, we're expecting that it is up and running for the next 2 years. So if it goes down between now and 2 years, we are not putting in a dime. You are coming to fix it yourself. Government doesn't have that.
There's this particular discussion around the crude for Naira for crude narrative that the government actually brought into the discussion for policy reform, saying that if we sell crude to refineries in Nigeria with the Naira, with the use of the Naira, it's going to ease the foreign exchange, the burden on the pressure on the foreign exchange. And of course, the cost of a dollar as at today, it's a little bit above 1,600 Naira. So when you have that and you look at this current refinery working, is this something hopeful that would come? Okay, let's get Abeokuta. Abeokuta is calling from E4. Abeokuta, thank you for joining Democratic Pass.
Good afternoon, Mama.
Good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Yes, I want to contribute about what you are saying now. We thank our president about the refinery is working. God will still continue blessing. And my own suggestion is that don't allow them to private the refinery. Because if they privatize it, it can be a NEPA problem in future. As the private, the NEPA sector, it becomes a problem. So that is our own contribution.
All right, thank you, Abeokuta, for calling and adding your voice to the conversation. Nigerians are really optimistic about this development, and that is that cause for concern. I look at the power sector. Some said it is not actually that the privatization did not work, but the fact that they didn't go through the real process, and of course, who are those that got the power sector at the end of the day. So that's also a narrative that we need to address on the program as well, as he has stated it.
Yes, he has a point, but I think overall, the people that we need to hold people in power much more accountable than we are doing. We need to have discourse sheets of those who we elect. How are they doing? Periodic reviews, just like I was saying, so that we are not just running round and round in circles. That of the energy sector, the lights that we are talking about. Now look at the process. How transparent, how open was it? And even let's say it was open enough, we also need to begin to reassess where we are today. Is it serving us well? Are we getting value for money? The meters that we are supposed to be picking for free, that comes together with the package, how many areas have them?
All right, we also have Lucky calling from Lagos. Lucky, thank you for joining Democratic Pass.
Hello.
Thank you, Lucky, for calling. How is Lagos?
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I'm happy that, yes, I'm calling from Lagos, yes. I'm happy that the refinery from HARCOURT is coming on screen. But my point is that how much are they putting in? Because Dangote is almost about now or something. So in HARCOURT, I expect HARCOURT to come down to 500, but that is our people refinery. People should make us happy. Well, things are very, very tough. We cannot have water in our house and we are getting water very expensive. It's not good. And I'm going to let benefit just one thing for its government so that we'll be very happy. So we can't allow that to monopoly everywhere, whereby you can cement now. Cement, very expensive. We were happy when they would take care. But till now, today, everybody is sad. So today we should do something whereby at least the price can come up to 500 while other things will come down. So that's my own take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucky, for calling. You could feel the pulse of the common people. What the refinery coming on board is saying to them is that the cost of fuel is going to go down. And that's more like what you get from the north, the south, any part of the country. That's the expectation for the people.
Actually, the bottom line is the coming on board of Port Harcourt refinery, will it reduce the cost of petrol today? Now, you travel our roads and you see that you find that the cars that are on the road are just very, very scanty. Almost everybody is adjusting to, and even the power that we need for our generators are not smiling at all.
I can't remember the last time I powered my generator.
Now, if you need to do, maybe you have guests that just you need to entertain properly and you have to do that, it's at a cost to your pocket. So coming, it's not just for fancy that we have another refinery coming up on board. How does it impact on the life of Nigerians? That is just the bottom line. And will it bring down the cost of fuel?
When politicians were campaigning, they were largely talking about, we'll revitalize the old refineries, and of course it should transfer, and which was part of, the premise of the negotiations with labor leaders as well. We want our refineries to work. We want our refineries to work. They kept repeating that. And of course, on one side, they talk about employment for the people. And of course, the other side of it is the cost of fuel. We don't have to be exchanging $1 for as high as 1,600, above that as well. So those are the realities for the people, and I don't know exactly where the hope of the common people should be. If this refinery is coming on board and nobody is even sure it's going to reduce the cost of fuel as we have it now.
I actually don't see that happening, and I just hope that as we begin to engage more and demand more from government in terms of delivery, there should be a way in which this price can come down, because at 1,050, 1,200 naira per liter of fuel, it is actually alarming. It's very, very hurting for the Nigerian economy, and these things are passed down to the end consumer. Either it is goods coming in terms of agricultural produce, because they don't fly these things in the air. They come by vehicles, they come by motorcycles, and it's the common man on the street that feels the brunt of these things. There has to be a way in which government can rejig this thing for price of fuel to actually come down, and for the cost of things to actually come down.
You have the conversation around people having refineries outside Nigeria, and of course, I said that the old forces, are the ones keeping us captive all along. So, what would be your message to the international community when it comes to allowing our own refineries to work as expected?
You see, the grip we have on the international community is very, very limited. Let's take care of our own home first. Just like I don't have a control over another person's child or another person's son or daughter or whatever he does, my own jurisdiction ends with my own home. Let's take care of our own space first of all. This is what we will allow. This and this is what we will not allow. And once we are able to speak with one voice, other people will listen loud and clear, and then they will line up. But by the time we have fifth columnists amongst us who also collude with external forces to want to game the system, to want to circumvent it, then we have a problem indeed.
So how much of access do we have for the public and industry response to President Tinubu's commendation of NNPCL in all of this? The people are expecting that the president to react differently, to say that, oh, NNPCL, you're not doing well, the people this and that. And of course, you hear president commending even the Melekari who has been in charge of this particular the NNPC Limited for quite a while now. So you don't know what to say along the line.
I think all that is optics. It's just for the public to be able to see and then to digest and consume. But behind the scene, there's need for a lot of soul searching. Now, Mr. Melekari, these are the books. This and this and this is where you have erred. And let's not forget, the biggest room on earth is the room for improvement. So there's more that can be done.
Maybe he has improved on so many fronts. That's why the president is still keeping him.
But Nigerians are complaining. And Nigerians are the ones that hired the president, not Melekari.
Melekari.
So I think Asiwaju would do well to take note of that and then know that people are actually complaining. People are complaining.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bayo Olabode, for your insights on the program. We appreciate you. And of course, to commend your attire. I think I should do that as well. We're looking the Niger Delta way. Thank you so much for being our guest on the program today, sir.
Thank you, Samiat.
And of course, we also like to appreciate Mr. Abayomi Babalola for being our guest on Democratic Pass today. Next week will be another time on the program. Thank you. And